All right, welcome back, guys. It has been great thus far. We've had some great dialogue here. And what I'd like to do now is go to our studio audience. We have some questions that are going to come and some comments. And let's start with our first guest up.
Okay, how you doing? My name is Shelton. First of all, it's inspiring to hear from this panel the message that they're talking about Pan-Africanism, so-called black nationalism. And inspiring to hear that today, that it's not dead, because I've been hearing this all my life. And I'm hearing terms I heard 40, 50 years ago, like nation building, et cetera. But one of the questions I have to ask is, the movements of the past, like the movements of the UNIA, Marcus Garvey movement, Malcolm X, Du Bois, Talented Tenth, and also Nkrumah Ghana, and many more. Are y'all drawing a lot of concepts and ideas from those movements to deal with the times today, because they're different? A lot of those movements deal with outside forces, when today we have more negative stuff within us as a people. So are y'all getting a lot of ideas from those movements and learning from the mistakes they made and even the positive things that they did?
In the movement that we're involved in, and it's really encouraging to hear that people who've been around longer than us respect what we do. So I'd like to say thank you. But also, I think it's a good question that you asked, talking about the internal challenges that we face, how the black community itself is hurting itself. I think that what I've learned most from our ancestors is that culture. Who says that? Is it Marimba Ani, who wrote Yurugu? Who says culture is a people's immune system. So without a strong culture, we're more susceptible to these forces that will screw us up, that will make us believe that we aren't capable of becoming strong, that will make us think that we have to succumb to these stereotypical images that we see ourselves. So I think what we've learned, or at least what I've learned from our ancestors, is that we need to self-reinforce these self-determination principles, these self-respect principles within the movement, because that's the only way that we'll be able to stand strong against what we face.
Also, I'd like to add just to that, we realized, especially my brother here, when he first started, that one of the issues with these movements is that they have very strong leaders, but those leaders, it tends to be an issue where it's only that one leader, you know, and then it breaks up because that leader, the head is cut off that leader. That leader is assassinated, that leader is hooked on drugs, or something happened to that person in any aspect, whether it's the government's doing, whether it's COINTELPRO, something happens to that leader, that particular leader, and it becomes a problem of, I guess you could say, not having strong leadership all around, not having several leaders. Like, that's part of the reason why we run our organization the way we do, why it's a horizontal board. So, you know, if some way, like, one person were to quit, it won't end what we're trying to do in this movement, because there's several of us who are working in this, not just the one person.
I think that was a great point that you did make, is that whenever we do have a leader, it's usually one voice, one cause, one person. And it's not a collective group of people that are individual, horizontal, as a team, working together for a common goal. There's always got to be a head, which it doesn't have to be. And honestly, you're stronger as a group than individually. But for whatever reason, we tend to prop one person up. So I guess I would just like to piggyback on that, as far as with you know, the teachings of Marcus Garvey and what he did. How can we, or what would you say would be a possible way to organize more on a horizontal level versus a leader emerging and then we, you know, prop that person up?
I think to start on the ideological level is to spread a certain ideology. So to spread the Pan-Africanism, spread it through education. So the lessons we do. So the more knowledge people have, the more powerful they are. So they don't feel like they have to kowtow to this one leader, because they have the knowledge themselves. They have the power themselves. And I tell people all the time, I tell Dom, I tell everybody, start your own organizations. Don't just get involved in one thing. Either become a very active member in an organization or start your own one. So that'll allow us, to black people, to spread wide and build strong, because all of us have different organizations. We won't all just be in the UNI. You'll have your own, and you can specialize in something. So I think that's another way we can kind of avoid those pitfalls of the past, of have all black people, have you starting your own media company, have her start her media company, and y'all...
And work together.
Work together at
I
the same
think
time.
that is what
work together. Exactly.
break each other apart is because we compete against one another instead of trying to work together and say, okay, what do you do that's better than me? Because I don't do everything that you can do.
Yeah, and that's how the system does. The system, they monopolize and they build vertically and like they'll be like, okay, Tom, I'm over here at Fox News, you're over at Warner Cable. They'll figure out and see what times to put on their shows to best get as many people as they work together, and that's what we have to do. And I think that's how we'll avoid those pitfalls in the past.
Okay, and what were you going to say?
The fact that we've been pitted against each other is because we've been co-opted into a capitalistic system. So we've been taught that to succeed, you got to eat everybody around you. That you can't succeed with your people, you got to succeed despite them. You have to succeed and lift yourself above everyone around you. But that comes back to being in charge of an organization. If you do lead an organization or you're in a position of power, you have to remember that it's not for personal glory. Don't care if your name is on anything ever. You can't be concerned. I can't be concerned that Andrea Piku is written on everything that I've ever done. I have to be concerned that the organization's name is written on it. I have to be concerned that the group is behind what's happening, that the group feels empowered by what's happened. It's not just for me or just for Alicia. If we did something, it's not ours. It's yours too.
I think she's right. We have to start in this movement. If we're going to really have this, we're going to have to start to develop those individual ethics. We have to have ethics to this movement. Just like there's business ethics, we're going to have to start to set up that culture that has ethics there's accountability too, because that's another huge thing. Because you can have this culture, but if there's no accountability where they're coming to me and saying, "Hey, Shanquan, I don't want you to do that," but I do it again and they don't do anything, then I'll feel more empowered to not listen to them. But if they say don't do that and I do it, and they go, "Okay, we're removing you," or then that will give accountability, and our leaders will be more righteous. And so I think that's how we can avoid those other pitfalls with leadership.
Awesome. Good question. We have another question from someone from our audience.
My name is Tanya, and I like to commend these young people on the great work they're doing. It inspires me and know that the torch will continue to be carried. But my question is this. It's obvious that we're aware of what the problems are. But my key thing is we need to start focusing on solutions and resolutions on how to change the dynamics of what we're going through and what we're experiencing. And one of the things that was mentioned was the economic component of it. And one of the problems in my city, which is Salisbury, is that a lot of people say, we would support this black business or this black organization if we knew about them or that they existed. How can we establish some kind of network where we are aware of what each other is doing or products they provide, so we can be more effective?
I'm going to answer the first question first, and I'm going to come back and answer your question. Going back to the roots is so important because all of our solutions are actually back in our history, and we have forgotten that. We think that we always got to be innovators and we always got to create, and the sister was educating me on this today. We have to go back, literally go back and reclaim what is ours, and that's the knowledge of self and knowing who we are. And that's where all our solutions are. They're back, because the more you go back in history, you'll see the same problems, and the same people are coming up with solutions to do that. You know what I'm saying? So that's why we follow Marcus Garvey, Kwame Nkrumah, Du Bois, Kwame Ture, Malcolm X. We have to follow these people because they already had the solutions, but because of their shortcomings or them getting assassinated or deported, that's what made us kind of just go wishy-washy and feel like we have to create our own way. With us, since we're exposed to this sick society that we live in because it's sick, and if you think there's nothing wrong with the society, you're either sick or confused, that we're exposed to that. So now we have to go back to the grassroots and apply these concepts to today's moderation, and that's how we do that too. Also, there's division among our ranks. How we come together is to make our people a great stature, our intelligentsia, to lay down their ego, their individual ideologies, and we must build together. Because if Du Bois said what was true, that 10% is going to uplift the rest of the 90, then the 10% need to stop being so divided, get their stuff together, and bring up that 90% to get them conscious enough or conscious about their behavior so they can get uplifted. Now, going back to the sister's question is that our problem sometimes when we try to find a solution is black prosperity. Black people get rich off the masses and then they go off and do what they have to do. We've seen it before. Celebrities do it. Our black celebrities do it. People from TV do it. Tyler Perry's a good example. He got rich off dressing like a woman and using the stereotypes of black people so he can make money. And then he used the Christian doctrine to make it all even better too. Christianity is horrible as well, but we'll talk about religion another time. But to bring ourselves together and to get our businesses together, we have to really, really organize, have annual conferences, talk about black businesses, bring these black businesses to the conferences, have a support them, spend a couple money on the businesses. We have to constantly keep doing this. We have to be consistent about it too, because nation building is going to start by having somewhat of a blueprint. I like Elijah Muhammad's economic blueprint. I think that's an intelligent way to get people to actually start saving and actually reinvesting in themselves, so we can have some ownership, so we can have some land, and so we can be self-sustaining and independent and actually build our nation. So solutions have to start by eradicating our egos, building together and meeting up annually, constantly, and building.
And I'd like to say, this is the things we do. So we just had an economic conference last Saturday, and we got black business owners, nonprofit owners, people with ideas just to come and give their business plan. And also talk about how they can network with other people in the room. And also we came together with ideologically as well with this speech and with all we were doing. So I think that what he said, just getting those conferences organized. Now, also, there's somebody going around in Greensboro actually making a black business directory. And what you can do in Salisbury is you can just go around, make a little phone book, you know what I'm saying? And you can do it real cheap and pass it around to the black neighborhoods. And hopefully we can start doing that as well here, get his directory and start passing around hand to hand. So I think those are two things that we've done and something we can do in Salisbury to start to organize that business a little bit. And then from there, it'll snowball.
Andrea? Sorry, I definitely agree with that, and I think that will also help build some unity, because a lot of that is what we need. I think a lot of the reason that people I've spoken to don't shop black as much as they could is because it is a sacrifice. You have to sometimes go out of your way, spend a couple more dollars. They might not have everything you need. You have to go to 2 or 3 different stores instead of going to Walmart and getting everything. But if we had a more of a united idea and we thought of, like, when I'm buying black, I'm not just buying things for me. I'm helping my community. I'm helping a business. I'm helping my children live in a sustainable community. We'd be more likely to make that sacrifice. We're willing to sacrifice it, just not for the right things. Save up for, basketball games or tennis shoes or whatever. Save up and be able to spend and buy all your Kwanzaa gifts at a black business next year.
That's why we always move. That's why we always move educational. And I take this from Fred Hampton, who is my personal hero. That's why I call myself Chairman Q, because he said it. You can't have any program. You don't do anything without the education. And Thomas Sankara said it too. If a military officer or person is uneducated, they will become a war criminal. You have to always have the education. That's why we always do educational and action at the same time.
And we're definitely going to get on the topic of education, but let me just get this next question.
Let me first say that words cannot describe how impressed I am with these two brothers and these two sisters here. I mean, just to hear them and hear them speak is so encouraging and uplifting that I can't even put it into words to describe how I feel when I hear them talk. That said, that leads into my question. At your ages, there's so much coming at you in terms of the media, so much negativity, so much that'll keep you blind, deaf, and dumb, so much that'll keep you satiated, so much that'll keep you placated. What is your strategy for reaching your peers and reaching young people your ages and awakening those minds in the way that your minds have been awakened? And what are you doing to get brothers and sisters and pull them into the fold? Because we need more young brothers and more young sisters like y'all.
I think, yes, thank you, first off, because I love the fact that you all commend us, because a lot of what we get, especially like you're saying with our age, is we get a lot of kickback, and not necessarily criticism, but just kickback, disagreement, opposition. But so thank you for commending us on what we're doing, because we really do appreciate people recognizing the power of what we're doing right now. So to answer your question, part of the way that we strategize to get to our age, one, we have to have gatherings. We have to have our own propaganda. We have to create our own media. That's why we make pamphlets. We have newsletters. We have conferences. We have campus meetings. We also like to have little tabling events where we'll sit and we'll talk in front of people, to other people, about the things that our organization stands for in terms of ideology, how we gain our intelligence by reading, by having fruitful discussions on a regular basis, and also by just looking to the elders, looking to our ancestors, looking to those people that came before us, and then also to the people that are here now who are older than us, who have experienced this, who understand more than we understand or more than we ever can understand because we never went through what they went through. So just having that knowledge and passing it on to those people, because like the brother was saying, education is the most important part of this movement because most people don't realize that there's a problem. So you have to educate them. You have to come to them with newsletters, with pamphlets, and you have to show them there is a problem. And some people are better with just having a conversation. You can just talk to people. And if you talk to them in a calm, professional manner, if you talk to people in a nice way, if you make them a logical argument and give them a good understanding, they tend to accept it. Even if it's not the first time or the second time, eventually they tend to take it on and to grasp it and to understand the power of what we're saying and why we say it.
And I just think black people are primed for revolution and organization. We're primed for this. We understand our history, either innately or overtly, either overtly or covertly. We know that we know we were slaves. So we're, in a way, to me, we're primed. And so I go like the marketer. I know we were talking about media, but like the marketer. You put something in front of somebody at least 15 times, it starts to become important to them. So that's my strategy. I try to get in front of them at least about 15 times, and many times as I can. And I noticed from last year when we grew from me and literally three of us, until now we have a board of about 7, and we have about 50 to 60 people that come to our meetings, is that we get it in front, we just get it in front of them, and then eventually, because of the problem, because we are speaking to truth, they come along.
I want to agree with everything they've said and add that organizations are not only important because they get people organized in one direction, but it creates a culture that people can join. So I think one of the most powerful things I think we've done on campus is to be out there and then people know what we're about. And if they get curious, maybe not every week, but one week, maybe they'll come to a meeting because they see us all the time. They see what we talk about. We've started to normalize that culture. So it's not as, people think you're crazy at first when you're involved in politics like this. But if people start to think that maybe I'm less crazy for agreeing with you, because there are more young people our age that agree than you would think. But by watching TV, you only get that one side, that one image of young black people. So by creating a culture in which, like, oh, other people are talking about this too, other people are meeting about this too, people are involved in this, they're willing to show up just because they're not alone. So I think building organizations is powerful because it creates a group mentality.
Exactly.
Yeah. We have one more question from our audience, and then we're going to go to a quick break.
My question is your group open to everybody, or is it just for college-age students?
Everybody, 100% everybody. Everybody in this room can come. Kids can come too. Some of the meeting topics might be kind of heavy, but we can do a kids version. I mean, I think everybody's welcome to the meetings. We've had grandmothers come in, I think.
Well, I think because it does take, it's not just for kids. I mean, the idea of, or college-age individuals, but the idea behind what you're trying to do is going to have to involve everyone, kids and the elderly, because, you know, you got to teach the young ones, and you got to teach some of the older ones too. But we also, it's going to go from, it can't just be one generation, is what I'm trying to get at. It's got to be all generations coming together. So I really like the way this dialogue is going. What I want to do is take one more quick break, and when we come back, we want to talk about the educational system and how to educate in Afrikaans. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. It has been a great show today. I want to thank our members of our audience for those awesome questions that we had just a few moments ago. Now, to wrap up, I want to end on the topic of education. And first, I'd just like to read you something real quick. The spelling of Africa literally means flesh and soul of the sun, of the hidden sun. The more common spelling, Africa, comes from the Arabic word firq or friq, which means separate, divide, or conquer. And this was written in Sacred Women by Queen Afua. And I wanted to say that because I want to understand more about the definition of Afrikaans and how do we educate in Afrikaans in today's society. So what I'm going to do is I would like to get an answer from each member of our panel today, and I'm going to start down here with Andrea and work our way back over. So, Andrea?
Well, that's a good question. I think educating our children and ourselves has to start with our history, so we know where we come from and we have a basis of what to build. When you are educated in the public school system, the first exposure you have and the only exposure you have to African people is the transatlantic slave journey. We learned that we were taken, enslaved, and sold as slaves on this continent. We worked here, etc. We never learned about the architectural and scientific history of Imhotep. We never learned about the medical advancements made by the Bantu, by the Mano people. We never learned about the rich African history that's our history too. But we separate ourselves. We think of ourselves as only these descendants of slaves when that's not true. Alicia?
When it comes to the whole educational aspect, I think a bit more, me being a psychology, sociology major, in the way that we interact with each other. We learn everything that we learned from the people who came before us, like she was saying, our history, and we learn from our ancestors. And then we also have to understand how that socializes into the bigger society. So education is important because what you learn about your culture and your people and yourself, that is what you're going to use when you're interacting in a larger society. So if you don't teach the children about education and about why it's so important, if you don't teach them about politics and economics, when it gets to the bigger society, they're not going to know how to interact in those same ways that other people have learned to interact in those ways.
I'm going to leave you guys with a quote by the Miseducation Negro by Carter G. Woodson. He said, if you can control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. As we take this journey of trying to uplift black people, I realize the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with white supremacy is the Negro mind. The Negro mind is so hard to deal with because it's so hard to convince them of who they are because they lack the knowledge of self. This is important to understand, and they don't have the self-love and all that too. So education is so essential to really resurrecting our people. As Andrea said, our history is so rich. It's a gold mine. It's not even hidden. It's right in front of you. It's a gold mine, but you have to dig for it and you have to get it. So education is the key to all things. Once you pick up a book and read about who your people are, I swear you will not be the same person you were with that European mindset. So we have to always do that. We have to really get back to controlling our way of thinking. The root to white supremacy is the Negro mind, and the greatest injustice that has ever happened in the Black Holocaust to the black melanated people in this world is that they have been robbed of who they are. That's the greatest injustice ever happened to melanated people, and I'll just leave it on that.
To me, education is of the utmost important, like we said before. But going further, we have to start to educate our own people. And so that's what we're focused on. And to me, with the Afrikaan versus African, is the idea of reclaiming ourselves as Africans on a nuanced level. Because if you can start to get those nuanced things of respelling the word with the K, of wearing dashikis, or wearing African traditional things, then it tends to sway your mind too, as well, in that direction of the past, the direction of your people, the direction of your ancestors. So that's why we do those nuanced things of dressing certain ways and wearing the and changing the spelling of Africa, because those nuanced things are just as important as the big things of our identity.
Okay, so how do, and anyone feel free to answer at this point, how do you propose we integrate this type of education into our current system? Because right now, and maybe that's not possible, I don't know, but I just want to throw it out there because, you know, the system is what it is. They have to go, children go to school to learn. We don't have any control really at this point as to what they're being taught. And so we're kind of held pigeon to how is, you know, what can we do? So I guess what would be any type of idea as far as how this can start? Anybody?
I'm just going to propose that we start building our own schools and we start amalgamating our own courses inside of our education curriculum. We know that America's education system is against anything that is uplifting black people about their African identity. So what we must do as a black community is teach our kids about who they are. We can't depend on the education system to do that. So we have to do the opposite of integration, and we have to do separation. And that's through separation of our education. We have to teach our kids who they are, because a white woman is not going to do that, because that's what dominates the education system. She's not going to teach a black boy who he is and how great of a king he was and how he ruled the world. She's not going to know that because she's too busy trying to get a paycheck. She's too busy trying to get her benefits from the system. She doesn't care about who that black boy was, who he used to be, and if he's going to use his mind to elevate himself, his people, and his nation. They don't teach that. They're not going to teach that, so it's going to be up to us to teach that. So integration is not even the answer, it's separation.
And I'm like what she was saying, I was talking to an audience member, and she was saying she homeschooled her kids. And I think maybe that's something we can really start to do in the black community as, in the meantime, before we get the infrastructure to educate our schools, educate our children in buildings, we can start to homeschool them. And we can give them the education they need because we know what they need. We're their parents. We can give them, we can tell them about their history and give them that practical education to help them through their everyday life.
And if for those who it's not possible to home educate, you can supplement the education. And point out where it's wrong is really important. Fill the holes that they're not teaching your children to teach them. And don't be afraid to reinforce African lessons after school with what you tell your kids to do, with where you bring them, with what daycare they go to. Give them positive black role models instead of having, your bum cousin watch your kids who in and out of jail, et cetera. Maybe see if they can spend the day with someone who has more to offer, even if it's just a few hours, to help expose our children to like a bigger dream. Because a lot of kids, they say you're not allowed to dream in the ghetto. A lot of kids don't know what they can be. I know so many kids who are extremely capable, brilliant, and don't think they can finish high school because they've just been taught that they don't. That
they probably won't.
Their people don't go to high school. Their family doesn't go to high school, and that's insane. They're smart enough to have PhDs. They just don't think they can do it.
And let me ask you, as far as curriculum goes, like, is there anywhere that we can go, like, as a parent, if I want to implement this or supplement it rather in after school, after at home? What would be some of the websites or where we could find the research? I mean, I know there's so much information out there, but I think that's kind of where some are going to get a little bit hesitant to take that step because they don't really know where to go. People don't know where to go, where to find it, and what to even look for.
I wish I could remember the name. There is a man who teaches, like, how to homeschool your kids with this kind of lesson. He's based in New Orleans, I want to say. I can't remember his name. If I remember his name, we'll, like, put it on our Facebook or something.
Okay.
But I would encourage to Google because there's, like, we're not getting this from a vacuum. Go to your library. You can teach your kids whatever you want. Go to the library. Check out a book. There's a really cool book at the library about, like, and it's cool because it's big and it has a bunch of pictures in it, and it's all about African kingdoms. And so, like, it's very kid-friendly because it's mostly pictures with, like, short captions. And it's not really a kid's book, but it's totally appropriate to teach kids about, like, what happened in Timbuktu or what happened in the Kingdom of Ghana. Just go to the library and break that down to a kid level, I think, is where to start.
There's a brother named Umar Johnson who's trying to start a school that's based on the curriculum of trying to uplift black boys. And I've been to a few of his lectures. He's trying to start on women too, but he hasn't had much experience with women, so he's trying to start with black boys to get them mentally cured from this sick society that we live in now too. I know up north that there are also small black communities that actually have a school or they actually homeschool their kids, and it's based upon lessons that they get from the community rather than just a crooked, biased, racist education system. Trust me, I've researched this stuff. I'm into education more than anything because I realize that that's the step that's really having us still being trailed behind with the system that we live in too. So, you need to figure out the people that's really building for you. You need to go and research the people that's trying to educate your kids and trying to make them the gods and the goddesses, the kings and queens that they really are.
With Umar Johnson, what state is that?
Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia.
Yeah, Philadelphia.
Okay.
He's working on a lot of things, but Philadelphia is where he's want to have it at.
I mean, because I do believe that charter schools, because people can collectively come together and start a charter school, and I think that's one thing that we don't think about as a possible way for business owners to come together and start a charter school and infuse that, because charter schools have a lot more free reign than the public school system.
It's very easy to watch kids. I would look up, we're thinking about, we want to start a kids program, so we've been on, like, the North Carolina State Department of Health website, and there's so many loopholes. If you have a program that lasts less than 4 months, you need no certification. You can just watch. If it's less than 4 months, like a summer program, you don't need anything. If you have less than, like, 5 school-age kids, you don't need anything. You can just have a homeschool. There are loopholes. So talk to people in your community who could teach your kids, who has 2 kids and wants to teach your 2 kids, and you could have some small homeschool. Someone has to pass probably like a simple exam or take a weekend class to be homeschool certified, but it's easier than you think to just research and figure out how can I educate my kids legitimately.
Okay. Well, listen, it has been a pleasure having you all here today. I have enjoyed this dialogue. I've enjoyed what I've learned. And I'm sure that members of our audience and those out there watching have also been able to learn something new today. Hopefully, you've been able to learn something new. But what I'd like to ask you is, how can we get in touch with you? How can we learn more about Siasa? How can we email you, Facebook you? What is that information?
All right. Siasa is spelled S-I-A-S-A. You can contact us through email. It's siasa87@gmail.com. Our Facebook handle is the same. It's facebook.com/siasa87. We're also on Twitter. It's @Siasa Speaks, all one word, SIASASPEAKS. Also, if you have a little extra cash for you take donations, we have a GoFundMe. It's gofundme.com/blackpower. I hope y'all support us and contact us with anything that you need.
I would like to say too, like, we're ready to work. I know this is a local TV station. Like, if you're an elder and you need some kids and you want to have us work for you, come tell us, because we're ready to work for our community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, again, I'd like to say thank you for coming out. Thank you for educating us, and thank you for just doing what you're doing as young people in our community. We need more people at your age like that to spark everyone around you as far as other generations. I am excited to have sat down with you today. I want to thank our audience for their great questions and for coming out and joining us. The dialogue will be airing on My 48 starting in February, so definitely be looking out for that. Our executive producers, Doc Sin from The Pavement and Larry Saeed Wright from Pitchfire Entertainment has brought this program to you, and I hope that you continue to tune in with us as the dialogue continues. Thank you.